Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Whitney Kosters, Professor of English, and today we're going to look at John Steinbeck's short story, The Chrysanthemums. It's a short story, but it's one of the most compressed and intricate pieces in 20th century American literature. Almost nothing happens on the surface, yet emotionally, psychologically, and symbolically, everything happens. Let's start with where we are first. The story takes place in California's Salinas Valley, Steinbeck's home territory, and he describes it as shut in by mountains and covered with a heavy gray fog. When you read those opening lines, the atmosphere feels enclosed, muted, almost airless. Steinbeck isn't just painting a backdrop, he is giving us a physical expression of Eliza Allen's inner life, a life with enormous energy and imagination, but very little room to move. Now, Eliza lives on a ranch with her husband, Henry. Henry is kind, practical, and steady. He thinks in terms of cattle sales, business deals, and machinery. He's not a villain. He's simply a man whose worldview is built around usefulness, around what works and what turns a profit. And that is the first major tension of the story: utilitarian logic versus imaginative life. Eliza's world is different. Her creativity, intelligence, and sensitivity, none of that has a recognized place on the ranch. So all of that energy funnels into one protected space, her chrysanthemum garden. These flowers aren't grown for food or money. They're grown for beauty because they are her art and her pride. And the garden is fenced, which is perfect symbolism. It's a sanctuary, but also a boundary. Her creativity lives inside those wires and nowhere else. When we first meet Eliza, she is dressed in men's clothes. She has on thick gloves, a man's hat, and a heavy apron. Her movements are strong, competent, almost aggressive. And Steinbeck does this deliberately because he's showing us a woman whose identity is split by the demands of her world. She has deep emotional and creative capabilities, but the only socially acceptable way for her to express power is through a kind of masculinized precision through gardening, control, and physical work. Later in the story, when she prepares to go to town with Henry, she transforms. She bathes carefully, puts on her nicest dress, her stockings, and her best underclothes. Suddenly, she is graceful, delicate, and feminine. But it's not that the garden Eliza is masculine and the dinner Eliza is feminine. Both versions are true. Steinbeck is showing how Eliza is forced to switch persona, depending on what the world around her expects. The split we see on the outside is the very split she feels on the inside. Now we come to the central moment of the story with the arrival of the tinker, who you should think of as a catalyst. He travels from place to place fixing pots and pans and living a life with movement and adventure, which is exactly the kind of life Eliza has never had access to. He represents freedom and imagination. When he speaks, even briefly in the language of beauty, for instance, when he describes the chrysanthemums as a quick puff of colored smoke, Eliza lights up because finally someone is speaking in the register she feels most naturally. And her reaction is immediate. She takes off her gloves and she leans in. Her voice gets brighter and she becomes animated. This isn't just flirtation, it is real recognition. For the first time in the story, someone seems to see the part of her she values most. She gives him chrysanthemum shoots with meticulous instructions. It's a small gesture, but symbolically, she's offering him a piece of her inner life, her creativity, her pride, her hope that something of her can travel beyond the fence of the garden. But the tinker isn't who she needs him to be. Later, when Eliza and Henry drive to town, she spots the chrysanthemum sprouts thrown on the side of the road. The pot has been kept because the pot is useful. The flowers, the part that mattered to her, the part that symbolized her artistic and emotional life, those were tossed aside. Now that moment is the emotional core of the story. It reveals something Eliza already sensed but didn't want to admit: that the world around her values utility, not beauty, containers and not creativity, practicality and not spiritual or emotional richness. And in that moment, her brief opening, her brief belief that she might be seen, completely collapses. This brings us to the deeper structure of the story. The story is about what happens when a romantic imagination meets a utilitarian world. Eliza wants intensity. She wants connection and a life that feels meaningful, not just efficient. Henry respects her, but he doesn't speak or understand her language. And the tinker seems to speak her language, but he doesn't actually mean it. And society around her can't understand a woman whose gifts cannot be monetized. This is why the story is both feminist and Marxist in its implications. From a feminist perspective, Eliza represents women whose intelligence, creativity, and emotional insights are under-recognized, underappreciated, and underused. She's capable of far more than the narrow roles available to her. Her garden is beautiful, but it's also a symbol of confinement, beauty that must stay behind the fence. From a Marxist perspective, Steinbeck is critiquing a system that measures worth by productivity. The pot is valuable because it can be traded, but the flowers have no market value, so they can easily be discarded. And in that symbolic act, we see how the economic logic of the world discards the emotional, spiritual, and creative capacities of people like Eliza. I think the brilliance of the Chrysanthemums is that it delivers this critique very quietly. There is no melodrama, no one screams, no one fights, no one is punished. Instead, Steinbeck shows us the slow, almost invisible way a person's inner life is diminished when the world around them has no place for it. The story ends with Eliza crying, quote, like an old woman. But she's not old. She suddenly just feels old because disillusionment has aged her. She has seen the truth, and the truth is this. She lives in a world that cannot receive the richest parts of who she is. So I think the tragedy of the Chrysanthemums is not that something terrible happens. It's that almost nothing happens, and yet everything inside Eliza changes. And I also think that's why the Chrysanthemums still matters so much today. It's a story that really speaks to anyone who has ever felt unseen or unheard. It speaks to anyone who has ever had more inside them than their world could hold, understand, or accept. It speaks to anyone who has ever invested love or creativity into something only to watch it be discarded by others who never understood its value. Steinbeck leaves us with a really haunting question by the end of the story, and that is, what happens to the human spirit when the world values only what is useful? I would love to hear your ideas about this story and how it resonated with you, so feel free to share in the comment section below and subscribe for more help with writing, research, and literary analyses. Be well.